Hello everyone! In this lesson we're going to take a quick break from coding our theme and website and instead learn about workflow and automation. So what in the world does that mean? What is workflow? What is automation? Well, let me ask you a few questions. So number one, would you like your web browser to automatically refresh for you anytime you save a change to any file in your theme folder? Number two, would you like your CSS to be automatically pre and post processed and bundled up anytime you save a change to it? And number three, would you like your JavaScript to be automatically compiled and bundled anytime you save a change? Now, I don't know about you, but I would answer yes to all three of those questions because automating those types of things will save us tons of time in the long run. So those are the exact three things that we are going to make happen in this lesson. Let's get started. So in the world of web development, almost all automation is made possible by a tool named Node.js. Now I'm not going to explain in detail what Node is because that's a topic for another course. All you need to know at the moment is that Node is a tool that lets computers run the JavaScript programming language outside the context of a web browser. And this lets JavaScript spread its wings, take flight, and do just about anything. So once we install Node on our computer, then we can leverage all sorts of amazing JavaScript tools that can automate tasks for us. We can basically turn our computer into our own little personal assistant robot, and this will save us a ton of time. The good news is that it's very easy to get started with Node. So right now, go ahead and Google for Node.js, or you can probably even just Google for the word Node, and the official website that you're looking for is nodejs.org. Once you get to the website, I want you to focus down here on the download links. You can see that there are two different options. I recommend the option on the left, the LTS option, which stands for long-term support. You can see that it's recommended for most users. Don't worry about the exact version number because that changes over time. So go ahead and click on that download link, and depending on the speed of your internet connection, that could take anywhere from 2 seconds to 20 minutes. But once it completes, just double click the downloaded file and all of the default options are A-OK. So you should be able to just click next, next, next. Once the installer completes, you'll want to make sure that everything was installed successfully. And the easiest way to do that is to jump over to your command line program. Remember, if you're on Windows, I encouraged you to use the program named Git Bash. And if you're on a Mac, you can use the application named Terminal. But anyways, back to the task at hand. We want to see if Node was installed successfully. Now, it doesn't matter where your command line is pointing to, so you don't need to worry about CD changing directory into a certain folder. You can run the following command from anywhere. So go ahead and run the command node and then a space and then -- version. Press enter. And as long as you see a version number here, doesn't matter what the number is, that means you're in business and everything is good to go. If instead you see something like command not found, that probably just means that you need to close your command line and restart your computer and try this again. Okay, so now that we've got Node, what's next? Well, Node installed a tool for us named NPM, which stands for Node Package Manager. Now, NPM is a tool that lets us download and install things directly from our command line. So for example, there is another tool that we need named Gulp, and Gulp makes automating tasks very easy. So right now, I want us to download and install Gulp. Except we don't need to go to the web browser and Google for Gulp. We can install it directly from the command line here. So do this with me. Let's run a command of npm and then a space. And we want to install something, so install and then a space. And the thing that we're interested in installing is named gulp-cli and then a space. And we want to install it globally on our computer, so then -G. Now before you press enter, if you're on a Mac, you might need to begin this line with sudo, like we see here. If you're on Windows, you do not need sudo. Okay, but go ahead and press enter to run that line. And once that completes, then we want to make sure that gulp was installed successfully. Now to check that, we can just run a command and say gulp space and then -- version. And as long as your command line responds with a version number, doesn't matter what the number is, that's good news and you're good to go. If instead you see command not found, odds are that when you ran this command up here, your command line responded with some sort of error message. And I recommend just copying and pasting that error message into Google. And that should pull up a quick solution to your issue. Okay, so at this point we've got the tools that we need. We've got Node and we've got Gulp. Now we want to actually apply these tools to our WordPress project and benefit from automation. Now, if you're using my VirtualBox and Vagrant setup for your local WordPress install, if you're not, don't worry, I'll get to you in just a moment, but if you are indeed using my Vagrant setup, right now I want you to navigate your command line to a specific folder. So CD for change directory and then a space, and I don't expect you to type out a folder path here. I'm more of a drag and drop the folder on top of this window type of guy. So what folder am I interested in? Well, within your local sites folder, where our WordPress project lives, dig into that folder, and then see this folder named Fictional University? I want you to drag that folder on top of the command line, and then press enter. Okay, and now our command line is looking within this Fictional University folder. And the reason that's important is if I dig into that folder, it contains these 4 very important files named gulpfile.js, package.json, settings.js, and webpack-config. Now these 4 files are important because they are what's going to turn our computer into our own little robot assistant. These 4 files are the instructions or the recipe to create all of the automation. So once your command line is pointing towards this folder, you can relax and wait for the next step. Now if you are not using my VirtualBox and Vagrant setup, and instead you're using something like MAMP or XAMPP or Docker, you're probably saying, hey, I don't have these 4 files. What am I supposed to do? Well, I want you to go download the files right now. So to do that, just visit github.com/learnwebcode/vagrant-lamp. Now just because I want you to download these files here, that doesn't mean you need to use my VirtualBox and Vagrant setup. You can continue to use your MAMP or XAMPP or Docker, but just go ahead and download the zip from this repo and just grab those 4 key important files from it. So let me show you what I'm referring to. Go ahead and click clone or download, and then click this download zip option. And then in your computer's downloads folder, you'll have this new file named Vagrant Lamp Master. And once you extract that, open up that newly created folder, dig into this Fictional University folder, and here are those 4 key files. And I want you to move these files into your local WordPress project folder. So you can either right-click to copy and paste, or you can just drag and drop these files. Now in terms of where you should move these files to, you can begin by just locating the theme folder that you've been working on throughout the course so far. So for me, that would be to look inside this local sites folder, and then Fictional University, and then the app folder. Now those folders that I just dug through to get here, those will be different for you. But these files will all be exactly the same for everyone taking this course, right? These are the WordPress core system files. You'll know you're in the right directory when you see folders named WP Content, WP Admin, and WP Includes. So go ahead and move over those 4 key files that I just had you download, move them into this folder. Once you've moved over the files, then I want you to navigate to this folder in your command line. Now in your case, this folder that contains the main WordPress system files might not be named app. In your case, it might be named Fictional University or WordPress or anything else. But basically what you can do is just from the command line, type cd space, and then drag whatever folder directly contains the WordPress files, just drag that on top of your command line. And then press enter, and your command line is now looking within that folder. Okay, so now at this point, everyone is on the same page. Our command line is looking within a folder that contains the 4 key files. These are the files that make the automation possible. We're very close to being done here. We only have 2 steps left. Now the file named package.json, this file is basically our grocery list. It's a list of all of the different tools and scripts and packages that we need. So how do we tell this file to go to the grocery store and get everything it needs? Well, we just go to the command line and type npm install, and that's it. We don't need to specify what we want to install. This command will look inside that package file to know what to install. Now, if you're on a Mac, you might need to begin this line with the word sudo. If you're on Windows, you do not need that. But go ahead and press enter. This install process might take a minute or two, but once it completes, we now only have 1 step remaining. So back in the folder that contains our 4 key files, I want you to open up the settings.js file in your text editor. Now, if you're following along and using my VirtualBox and Vagrant setup, you don't need to change either of these values. But if you're using MAMP or XAMPP or Docker, you'll want to replace these with something that makes sense. So for a quick review, this first property is named theme location, and you just want to provide a path to your theme folder. Now this path is relative to wherever the settings.js file lives, right? So in my case, I would want to drill into the app folder. So that's why we see a // to begin in the current directory, and then dig into the app folder. And then from there, it's just the WordPress specific folders like WP content, themes, and then the actual name of my theme folder. So if you're using MAMP or XAMPP, you might just need to remove the app from this path. Okay, and then this second property down here, URL to preview, just use whatever URL you hit in your web browser to view your website. Again, if you've been following along with me step by step, this value makes sense, right? We set up a development domain named fictionaluniversity.dev. But if you're using MAMP or XAMPP, you instead might need to type localhost :888/fictionaluniversity or something like that. Okay, but once you've got values here that make sense, you can go ahead and close this file. And back in our command line, we are ready to begin the automation magic. Now my cursor in the command line is down at the very bottom, and that might be hard for you to read. So if you just type clear and press enter, that will sort of clear the screen and space things out so that you're back up at the top here. Okay? You don't need to do that, it's just a nice tip. Now in order to begin the automation, what we want to do is run a command named gulp, and then a space, and then the word watch. So gulp watch. Go ahead and press enter. And that will open a new tab in our browser pointing towards localhost 3000. So now we've got this proxy preview server that's watching and waiting for us to make changes to our files. So let's test this out. Why is this so useful? Right now, I want you to open up your theme folder in your text editor. Right? So here's the theme folder we've been working on throughout the course. And let's test things out by hopping into frontpage.php. And just a few lines down, we have this heading level 1 that reads welcome, exclamation, right? That's what's controlling this headline here. Now to test out our automation, why don't we add a few more exclamation points at the end of that? Now as soon as you hit file save to save this file, you don't even need to refresh. As soon as you jump back to your web browser, it already refreshed for you. And if you have a really large laptop or desktop monitor, this is really nice because you could have your text editor on one half of your screen and a web browser on the other half, and you don't even need to hop back and forth to refresh. Anytime you save a change, the website is just automatically updated. Now this setup of ours is not limited to just our PHP files. We've also completely automated our CSS and JavaScript workflows. We will cover CSS and JavaScript in the next lesson, but before we bring this lesson to a close, I want to show you another huge bonus of our workflow. If you've ever wanted to preview your work-in-progress websites on your smartphone, you're going to love this. If you jump back to your command line, right after we ran that gulp watch command, just a few lines below that, you'll see this information about the server that we spun up. Now this local URL, that's what our web browser is previewing, but we also see an external URL. Now right now I want you to try this. If your smartphone is on the same router or wireless network that your laptop or computer is on, you're in for a treat. So pull out your smartphone, open up the browser, and visit this URL that you see here. Yours might be slightly different than mine, so don't type out what you see in the video. Type out what you actually see in your command line for the external value. Now that's going to bring this lesson to a close. If you're wondering how to stop the whole Gulp Watch preview proxy server, in the command line, just press Control and C on the keyboard at the same time. So that closes our automation process, and if you want to fire it up again, just run Gulp Watch again. In our next lesson, I'll give you a quick preview of our automated CSS and JavaScript workflows. Let's keep things rolling, and I will see you then.